Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. Motions relating to the business or sitting of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary. Public business, private members' business.
Motion, clerk.
Motion.
Who is moving this motion? Is the Chief Secretary here? Then we stand adjourned for 5 minutes.
We head back to the House, and this time it's all about the budget. The THA received $2.585 billion for fiscal 2024, only 55% of the budgetary request. Therefore, the executive met and reprioritized certain projects, and Chief Secretary Farley Augustine is seeking approval from the House on the new way forward. He's also seeking support for a proposal to seek legal redress over the illegal handling of THA finances by the Ministry of Finance. And of course, what would any sitting be without the highly anticipated question and answer segment? Thursday, November 23rd from 10 a.m. Don't miss the 24th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of the Tobago House of Assembly. Exercise your right to either come in or tune in. Don't miss it.
Patricia Charles Pantin. I am from Mason Hall, and I am the Secretary of the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development. Growing up in Mason Hall was like a very humble, natural experience. I grew up in farming, going to plant corn and peas with my father on the farm in Belmont. My father, he was the one that oriented me to, agriculture. And my mom, she was the disciplinarian. She was the one that, shaped me into who I am today. Teaching you those life skills, and I maintained that throughout my entire life. I began my career at the Eastern Caribbean Institute of Agriculture and Forestry, and then I went on to study ecological sciences and forestry at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and then I went on to study public health at the University of Liverpool in England. So all my life I've been very close to the earth. I enjoy everything that is natural. I grew up with one sibling. It was always me looking up to my sister, looking up to her for guidance as a young lady, and follow everything that she would do. But it was very nice having a sibling that you could relate to, and have all those experiences being a woman. My favorite dish as an adult is crab and dumpling. Crab, dumpling and provision. And if you throw in some pigeon peas or callaloo, even better. The first meal I cooked as a young person was curry fish and dumpling. And my father left me, he went to the garden, he left me to prepare the meal, and I tried to remember everything that he did step by step. And the one thing I didn't do correctly was to squeeze out the coconut milk and use the milk. I actually used the entire coconut, grated it everything, and then threw it into the fish. And I will be excused for that because I was 12 years old. And when he came back, he didn't scold me because it tasted good. It wasn't like it was an entire coconut, it was just a bit of coconut. And he said, you know, everything tastes good, you know, but it's the coconut milk you're supposed to use, not the coconut. My journey in politics so far, while it is rewarding, it is challenging. I am grateful for all the experiences. I'm grateful for all the highs and lows. Under the division, we will have rolled out a lot of initiatives. Even within the district, we will have tried our best to manage our limited resources to get things done. But for me personally, bringing out the best in others makes me feel that this entire journey was worth it. Bringing out the talents in the children that I work with under the Reading with Expression program, even with technical officers that were not empowered to do things, you know, differently. Just taking them along the journey of understanding that these things can be done and bringing out the best in them. I consider that to be the biggest achievement. Trying to make people comfortable within their own space first, and then moving on to bigger things within the community. I think it's a collective approach to everything, and so far all of us would have decided that this district would need waste management structures. A lot of the community areas within the community are not well lit, so a lot of community members would have said they just need lights, they need lamps. We would have had deplorable roads, brace walls, drainage. People want to be comfortable in their own space to begin with. The Chief Secretary would have indicated that we have plans for the indoor sporting complex, and all these things are remarkable. It would get children, you know, it would embrace the talents of the children. So that is one plan, and I consider it to be a mega plan given the amount of money that would be needed. But trying to make people comfortable within their own space first, and then moving on to bigger things within the community. I would say I'm jovial because many people refer to me as the woman that is always smiling. Regardless of how challenging things might be, I'm always smiling. And I am always smiling because there are always people that are looking on at you, waiting to see your expression and how you deal with things. And you know, you have children looking up at you as well. And they should be able to see someone in the public space that they can follow. And I will remain that person, and that is who I am, just naturally jovial, approachable.
Tobago, we head back to the House, and this time it's all about the budget. The THA received $2.585 billion for fiscal 2024, only 55% of the budgetary request. Therefore, the executive met and reprioritized certain projects, and Chief Secretary Farley Augustine is seeking approval from the House on the new way forward. He's also seeking support for a proposal to seek legal redress over the illegal handling of THA finances by the Ministry of Finance. And of course, What would any sitting be without the highly anticipated question and answer segment? Thursday, November 23rd from 10 a.m. Don't miss the 24th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of the Tobago House of Assembly. Exercise your right to either come in or tune in. Don't miss it.
Assembly Legislature wants you to be a part of Tobago's conversation. I'm going to ask you 4 easy questions. If you don't know, we'll learn something today.
Before we proceed, I erroneously said that we were adjourned. It is not my responsibility, leader of assembly business. We were suspended for 5 minutes, and I'm going to make this absolutely clear. Should you be unavoidably absent or late, please inform the secretariat of your delay or absence from sitting. Thank you. Clerk?
Motion.
Member?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, I stand here to present my administration's reprioritized budget for fiscal 2024. Please permit me at this point to bid special good morning to all the members of this honorable House, including those who are unable to join us at this time. There are quite a few of us battling through the flu, and Madam President Officer, let me say from the onset that I apologize to my colleagues, and more than that, certainly I will ensure I'm seated here for the minority leader's response, but there will be moments that I may have to sit outside because I'm one of those battling through the flu at the moment. Madam Presiding Officer, the reprioritized Tobago House of Assembly budget statement for fiscal 2024, which I'm about to lay in this honorable House, is the product of 2 intimately connected and legally constructed budget process. You will recall, Madam Presiding Officer, that on June 26, 2023, in keeping with the provisions of Section 41, 1, 2, and 3 of the THA Act, number 40 of 1996, I presented the Tobago House of Assembly budget statement together with the draft estimates of revenues and expenditures for fiscal 2024. In that presentation, Madam Presiding Officer, I again alerted this honorable House and by extension the wider global community to the fact that the current legal construct that informs and directs the THA's budgetary processes denies Tobago of any real and meaningful fiscal and budgetary authority. I went further to state that the THA budget process is plagued with uncertainties, especially as it relates to the parliamentary allocations and the releases of all the approved allocations from the Ministry of Finance to the Tobago House of Assembly. Madam Presiding Officer, detailed scrutiny of Act 40 of 1996 reveal that it does not provide adequate foundation of power to promote and protect the implementation of the chosen development strategy of the people of Tobago and their island government via the budgetary process. It is this denial of the right to self-determined destiny that defines the lifelong struggles of Tobagonians. Perhaps the most unambiguous indication of this came from former Prime Minister Pandey in the text of a speech to the Tobago House of Assembly in April 1996. In that text, Mr. Pandey affirmed that his government then was committed to facilitate a change in the course of the history of Tobago, particularly in terms of its relationship with Trinidad, by ensuring that Tobagonians are no longer denied the most fundamental right that has been known to any community of human being, the right to a self-determined destiny. Close quote. Madam Presiding Officer, present, the Cabinet must scrutinize and approve the budget of Tobago and can finance it to whatever degree it desires. When the THA spend, it must submit appropriate accounting reports to the Cabinet via the Ministry of Finance. Both provisions constitute a subversion of the capacity of the Executive Council to manage the development of the Tobago economy. It is worth noting here, Madam Presiding Officer, that there is no equivalent provision for the THA to influence the budget of Trinidad or that of Trinidad and Tobago after it is submitted to Cabinet and then to the Parliament in Trinidad. Madam Presiding Officer, it must be noted that by the structure of representation in the National Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, whenever Cabinet exercise unfair and unreasonable control of the budget and the economic policies of the Tobago House of Assembly, the people of Tobago become subject to traditional domination by the majority party of Trinidad and stand in subjugated relationship to it. Moreover, this control is inevitably exercised without any adequate reference to the discretion of the Executive Council of the THA. Relatedly, under the current arrangements, the Cabinet, especially the Minister of Finance, via the Ministry of Finance, can and does delay disbursements and withhold funds without appropriate consultation with the Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy. And might I add, the Minister of Finance, via the Ministry of Finance, have done so illegally since 2017. Furthermore, since the 2021 THA elections, which resulted in the removal of the 20-year PNM administration, the PNM Cabinet is increasingly asserting control over the finances of the THA, especially by unilaterally limiting and thereby effectively changing the appropriated budget as it deems necessary. This is being done by an attempt to wrongly invoke outdated acts such as the Exchequer and Audit Act, Chapter 6901, and others which implement Section 75(1) of the Colonial Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago and authorize wide-ranging control over appropriation by Parliament. For example, Madam Presiding Officer, from fiscal 2017 to 2023, the Cabinet, through the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance, has consistently refused to release the entire amounts allocated by Parliament to the Tobago House of Assembly. This illegal and unconstitutional conduct of the central government has to date denied Tobagonians of $166.4 million of our appropriated parliamentary allocations. To illustrate, Madam Presiding Officer, for fiscal 2017, we are owed $56.6 million. For fiscal 2018, we are owed $32.9 million. For fiscal 2019, we are owed $16.3 million. For fiscal 2020, we are owed $25.2 million. For fiscal 2021, we are owed $8 million. For fiscal 2022, we are owed $12.2 million. And for fiscal 2023, we are owed $15.3 million, giving the total of $166.4 million. Sadly, but not surprisingly, Madam Presiding Officer, in 2023, we have a Tobago-born Prime Minister in Port of Spain, and the two members of Parliament for Tobago East and West, and a Tobago Senator, perhaps we could call Hislop of misinformation, presiding over and promoting their government's policy to deny Tobagonians our fundamental right to a self-determined destiny, only because we Tobagonians were unanimous in December 2021 THA elections that the PNM is politically and morally, and may I add, historically unqualified to lead Tobago ever again. But, Madam Presiding Officer, as we say in Tobago, time longer than twine, and the day of reckoning will soon come. Tobago's development needs for fiscal 2024. Madam Presiding Officer, there is no doubt that Tobago's development lags behind Trinidad. This in large measure, is related to the historical underfunding of the development program of the THA. And while some persons may have a vested interest in Tobago remaining underdeveloped, this is something I reject wholeheartedly. And when I speak of development, we are not talking about huge skyscrapers and smokestacks. We seek the kind of development that improves the quality of lives of our citizens, and it is in this context that this administration is adamant that we must make this island the greatest little island on the planet, and doing so child by child, family by family, village by village. Tobagonians are not inferior to anyone, and we cannot allow our ambitions to be circumscribed by our geographical size, unfair constitutional relationship with Trinidad, and political pettiness. As someone who loves Tobago unconditionally, I am not comfortable with the current state of affairs. Madam Presiding Officer, Tobago's developmental needs for this fiscal year 2024 were carefully packaged in my budget statement last June. They were all aimed at building a sustainable, prosperous, and resilient Tobago, which equates to laying the foundation for our greatest little island on the planet. You will recall that critical development priorities for Tobago as identified in the budget statement of fiscal 2024 included the following: strengthening the governance and constitutional framework between the THA and the central government by improving the autonomy of Tobago, digitalization and digitization of the THA through institutional strengthening, thereby enhancing the THA's business processes. This is programmed to take place within the Tobago Online project, of which my THA is the first phase. Enhancing the THA's fiscal and financial management systems by modernizing the accounting systems through adopting the new public financial management system and the related institutional strengthening. Economic stimulation through enhanced assistance to businesses adversely impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, creating an enabling environment for businesses to prosper and grow, attracting foreign direct investment in key sectors of the Tobago economy, enhancing agricultural production and food security by building safe, sustainable, and resilient food supply systems, and deploying an elevated uptake of science, research, smart agriculture technologies, and institutional strengthening. Revitalization of the tourism sector and the development of cultural industries through the improvement of the tourism product, enhanced marketing arrangements of Destination Tobago, new airlift arrangements to Tobago, and the development of key festivals and cultural events. Development of an educational system and architecture that links knowledge products, teaching methodologies, and outcomes with real-world problems. Development of a healthcare and social protection system that will be responsive and be able to provide holistic, high-quality, client-centered health and social protection. Developing community prosperity and empowerment initiatives that build resilient communities through sustainable practices, responsible governance, and meaningful community engagement, creating and nourishing the socio-economic and institutional enabling environment for youth development through development projects and programs, support for the sporting sector and development of our sports infrastructure on the island, enhancing infrastructural systems to meet the needs of our changing climatic and environmental realities, sustainable development of Tobago's natural resources for the socio-economic development and promotion of Tobago as the greatest little island on the planet. Key initiatives include establishment of an energy transition policy with a robust net zero strategy and the establishment of a biodiversity protection policy utilizing a no net loss biodiversity protection strategy, and the expansion of housing opportunities through an aggressive and economically viable affordable housing program and other financial assistance programs aimed at improving the quality of the existing housing stock. What is pellucidly clear from the foregoing, Madam Presiding Officer, is that Tobago's developmental needs are huge and urgently urgent. What is also clear is the fact that unless there is deliberate and agreed to intergovernmental financing policy to address Tobago's developmental needs in a meaningful way, the island's socio-economic development would continue to be seriously compromised or even upended. Budgetary funding gap for the THA for fiscal 2024. Madam Presiding Officer, you will recall that for fiscal 2024, in my capacity as Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy, I requested a total of 4.6 billion from the central government, comprising 3.39 billion for recurrent expenditure and 1.15 billion for development program expenditures, 92.1 million for URP, and 44.8 million for CPEP. The Minister of Finance in his recent 2024 budget statement allocated only 2.59 billion for the THA for fiscal 2024, of which 2.30 billion was allocated for recurrent expenditures, 260 million for capital expenditures, 18 million for URP, and 9.2 million for CPEP. The overall budgetary allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2024 represents about 4.37% of the national budget, or $4.37 of every $100 spent in Trinidad. The overall budgetary allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2024 is 2.298 billion, and for development program allocation is only 260 million, a decrease of 35% relative to the allocation of fiscal 2023, and that's a 35% decrease on the development budget allocation. As it pertains to the unemployment relief program, the budgetary allocation for fiscal 2024 is 18 million, the same amount that was allocated in fiscal 2023. Notably, as it pertains to CPEP, the budgetary allocation for fiscal 2024 is 9.2 million, the same amount that was allocated in fiscal 2023. Madam Presiding Officer, of the overall allocation of 2.298 billion to the Tobago House of Assembly for recurrent expenditure for fiscal 2024 is disaggregated as follows. 736.9 million, or 32%, is allocated for personnel expenditure. 658.4 million, or 29%, allocated for goods and services. 876 million, or 38%, for current transfers and subsidies, and 26.7 million, or 1%, for minor equipment purchases. The overall shortfall in recurrent allocation to the Assembly for fiscal 2024 is 1 billion and 90 million, or 32.2%. This shortfall is disaggregated as follows. 117 million or 13.7% shortfall in personnel expenditure, 383.7 million or 36.8% shortfall for goods and services, 540.6 million or 38.2% shortfall for current transfers and subsidies, 48.7 million or 64.6% shortfall for minor equipment. Madam Presiding Officer, permit me to turn to the development program allocation and associated shortfalls for fiscal 2024. Madam Presiding Officer, the development program allocation to the THA for fiscal 2024 is only 260 million. Is disaggregated as follows: 0.5 million or 0.2% is allocated for pre-investment, 0.5 million or 0.2% is allocated for the productive sectors, 102 million or 39% is allocated for economic infrastructure, 119.7 million or 46% for social infrastructure, 37.4 million or 14.4% for multi-sectoral and other services. The overall shortfall in development program allocation, and this is development, is 891 million or 77.4%. This aggregated as follows: 301.6 million or 74.7% shortfall in economic infrastructure, 443.7 million or 78.8% shortfall in social infrastructure, 144.2 million or 79.4% shortfall in multi-sectoral and other services, 0.5 million or 50% shortfall in pre-investment, and 1 million or 66.7% shortfall in productive sectors. Madam Presiding Officer, the message from the central government through the budgetary allocation to the THA for fiscal 2024 and the statement of the Minister of Finance is clear. It can be interpreted to mean we are not supporting your development program for Tobago. We wish you luck. Madam Presiding Officer, I would demonstrate the significant negative impacts of this on the development work program of the THA for fiscal 2024. Here are a few examples. In fiscal 2023, it costed $23.3 million to fund the CPEP. $23.3 million to fund the CPEP, to pay the workers. But only $9.2 million was allocated in fiscal 2024. In fiscal 2023, or last fiscal, $60 million to fund URP, as in to pay the workers, but only $18 million allocated in this fiscal. And the figure is likely to go up for both CPEP and URP owing to the increase in the minimum wage. Similarly, in fiscal 2023, it costed $14.2 million to fund EID cut, but only $6 million was allocated in fiscal 2024. In fiscal 2023, it costed $3.6 million to fund the financial assistance program to university students. That is what we call DATAs. $3.6 million was how much we spent last fiscal. But in this fiscal, we are only allocated $500,000. That's all we are allocated to fund, support, financial assistance for our university students. Last fiscal, it costed us $16.9 million to fund the sport development programs. But in this fiscal, only $300,000 was allocated. In fiscal 2023, on the road resurfacing program, yes, we treat with all of those potholes that we complain about. Last fiscal, it costed us $42.6 million. But in this fiscal, the allocation is only $4 million. Further, for fiscal 2023 or last fiscal, for Windward Road Special Development Program, and we're talking about development of the road infrastructure going eastward up to where I'm from, The program costed us last fiscal 12.9 million, but in this fiscal, the allocation is only $2 million. Madam Presiding Officer, it shows clearly two things. One, that the central government is insensitive when it comes to the developmental needs of the island. It also shows, secondly, that this government has been we have been finding a way, Madam Presiding Officer, to find the monies to increase the amounts spent on these critical programs for the people of Tobago. Is it that the central government and the Minister of Finance are saying to us, close down these programs? Is it that the central government is saying we should send home all the extra workers in CPEP and URP? Is it that the central government is saying we should discontinue the THA scholarship program? Is it that they are saying that we should not fight up with the Windward Road development? These are critical fiscal policy choices that we, as Tobagonians, are being forced to make as the central government continues to weaponize the national budget against Tobago and Tobagonians. But let me state it here and now that as long as I occupy the office of Chief Secretary, none of these will happen. I will continue to do everything that is necessary to ensure that Tobago becomes the greatest little island on the planet. Let them say that we manage. And perhaps the time has come for Tobagonians and Tobago to stop being smallish and to be biggish. Revisiting our budgetary priorities for fiscal 2024. Madam Presiding Officer, the historical shortfall in parliamentary allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly continues to occasion the need for us to strategically and creatively execute our development mandate to Tobagonians. In light of the parliamentary allocations for fiscal 2024, as Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy, I constituted and presided over two separate sets of planning meetings aimed at reprioritizing and streamlining the THA budgetary operations for fiscal 2024. The first was held exclusively for secretaries and assistant secretaries at the THA-owned Manta Lodge in Tobago's most beautiful village, Speyside. Manta Lodge was strategically chosen to enable the testing of the systems of the newly renovated facility. The system-tested issues are all documented and being treated with by EID Court. The second meeting was held at Shaw Park Complex and included all secretaries, assistant secretaries, the chief administrator, administrators of the divisions, technical teams from across the divisions, other accounting officers, and key personnel of selected THA companies. The objectives were to foster and enhance understanding of the fiscal and financial realities facing THA in fiscal year 2024, to bring clarity to the reprioritization program of the THA for fiscal 2024, to improve the executive and administrative interface, to elevate coordination and collaboration within the operations of the THA, to enhance efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of the work program for fiscal 2024. We aimed primarily to give priority to projects that significantly improve the standard of living and well-being of the people of Tobago. We also sought to ensure balanced development by ensuring a good geographical spread of the projects and programs. Our priority projects were also informed by the contributions from Tobagonians emanating from the ongoing Executive Council Town Hall meetings across the electoral districts. Madam Presiding Officer, taking the above into consideration, the methodology which was deployed to prioritize the projects, programs across the THA was engineered and built on the following key conditions or metrics. 1, ongoing projects with allocations the completion of which will deliver benefits to the island and its residents, such as job creation, environmental enhancement and protection, revenue generation, and cost savings. 2 ongoing projects without allocation, but the completion of which will deliver significant benefits to stakeholder communities, such as job creation, environmental enhancement and protection, revenue generation, and cost savings. 3 new projects with allocations that are shovel-ready, job creating sectoral linkages, and high revenue generating possibilities. 4 new projects without allocation, but which will meet the need of several beneficiaries or users, facilitate employment, business creation, development, and the delivery of the people's mandate. And finally, new or modified projects that institute appropriate responses to every changing socio-economic and physical infrastructural need. Madam Presiding Officer, the fiscal decisions for 2024 emanating from reprioritization and budget streamlining exercise is as follows. A projected recurrent expenditure of 2.183 billion, a reasoned and calculated development program expenditure of 500 million, with guaranteed 375 million at the start and an additional 125 million should our off-budget financing options bear fruit. URP 92 million, CPEP 44.8 million, a total projected expenditure of 2.694 billion, excluding off-budget financing possibilities that will be pursued in fiscal 2024. And please permit me to highlight some of the reprioritized key projects and initiatives across the various divisions of the Assembly for fiscal 2024. The responsible secretaries in their presentations will give greater detail of these priority areas. In food security, natural resources, the environment, and sustainable development, key projects will include the establishment of the Tobago Agriculture Research Institute at a cost of 5.9 million, fishing facilities, repairs, and establishment of new ones, 11.1 million, construction of abattoirs at Mason Hall and Kendall, at a cost of 20 million, upgrade of the tissue culture laboratory at a cost of 500,000 or 0.5 million, construction of a veterinary diagnostic laboratory at a cost of 3 million, preparatory works for the establishment of the Mason Hall and the Roxborough food and transportation hubs at a cost of 3 million, upgrade of tractor pool, 2.5 million, and preparatory works for the establishment of mega farms at a cost of 5 million. At the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation, priority projects will include, but not limited to, construction of the home for Blue Food at Bloody Bay, 15 million, implementation of the Scarborough Beautification Project at a cost of 1 million, restoration of Fort King George Light Tower at a cost of 2 million, implementation of the Mount Irving Water Treatment Plant at a cost of 4 million, upgrade of the Bloody Bay and Mount Irving beach facilities at a cost of 3 million, upgrades to steel pan theaters at a cost of 5 million, upgrades to lifeguard towers at a cost of 2 million. Division of Education, Research and Technology, implementation of the school repair program at a cost of 26.6 million, pre-construction works for a new Scarborough Secondary School at a cost of 3 million. And allow me to pause here, Madam Presiding Officer, to indicate that the budgetary allocation for a new Scarborough Secondary School for fiscal 2024 is $1 million, with 800,000 allocated for repairs to the current school. However, we are proposing to spend at least $3 million in this fiscal year for all the pre-construction works and land preparation for the new Scarborough Secondary School. Design of an inclusive school for our hearing impaired at Signal Hill. This is the design of the school, 1 million. Renovation of the Scarborough Library. And yes, the library, not so old, the roof is leaking badly, at a cost of 3 million. Construction of the Corlan Early Childhood Center at a cost of 2 million. Assistance to tertiary education or university students through the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services at a cost of 4.5 million. And I pointed out earlier that the allocation was about 0.5 million or 500,000. Refurbishment and upgrades of science laboratories at secondary schools, 2 million. Acquisition of 2 buses for school transportation needs, particularly for extracurriculum activities or after-school programs, cost of 1 million. Establishment of technical training institutions at a cost of 2 million, and special and targeted intervention programs at a cost of 2 million. Community development, youth development, and sport. Construction works at the Bacolet Indoor Sporting Complex at a cost of 15 million. Completion of the Goodwood Recreation Ground Pavilion at a cost of 5 million. Construction works to resume at the Shellerville Community Center and Pavilion at a cost of 5 million. Completion of installation of lights at Patience Hill, and commencement and completion of lights at Louisdor Field, playing field, at a cost of 8.5 million. Upgrade of the Lekoto Community Center at a cost of 3.9 million. Phase 2 construction works at the Column Beach Sport Arena for use as multi-sport facility at a cost of 20 million. Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development for fiscal 2024 as follows. Major improvement works on secondary roads at a cost of 52 million. Infrastructural works at the Plymouth Road at a cost of 8.3 million. Infrastructural works on the Windward Road at a cost of 8 million. Infrastructural works on the Plymouth Annersvale Road at a cost of 5.2 million. Completion of infrastructural works on the Lamy Road to Roxborough, 11.5 million. Emergency housing related to the airport relocation at a cost of 5 million. Implementation of the community restoration program at a cost of 19.5 million. Implementation of the Scarborough Urban Redevelopment Program.
Member, you have 5 minutes.
At a cost of 3 million. And Madam President, let's see if I could quickly go through the other divisions. In fiscal 2024, for health, wellness, and social protection are as follows. Relocation of the probation hostel, 1.9 million. Acquisition of new ambulances, 13 million. Establishment of an insect vector laboratory at a cost of 2 million. Upgrade of health centers throughout Tobago at a cost of 2.3 million. Expansion in the capacity of the neonatal intensive care unit at a cost of 5 million. Expansion of the oncology unit, 3 million. Acquisition of MRI scanner and the 64-slice CT scanner at a cost of 7.5 million. Upgrade of the hyperbaric chamber at Roxborough, 5.4 million. Upgrade of Boko, Plymouth, Castara, and Delaford cemeteries, and that's part of an ongoing program at 5 million. Settlements, public utilities, and urban development. Completion of infrastructural works at existing housing developments, 4.4 million. Development of lands at Shervan, Adelphi, Advente, and Riseland, 25 million. Provision of social assistance, housing or home ownership made equal, 5 million. Supplementing the cost of electrification for families across Tobago at a cost of 2.5 million. Office of the Chief Secretary, completion of the Color Hall Administrative Complex, 10 million. Retrofitting and refurbishment works at the Shore Park Cultural Complex, 3 million. Completion of CERT Operations Center at Speyside, 2 million. Initiation of the digitization of MyTH at a cost of 12 million. Finance, Trade and Economy, renovation of Victor E. Bruce Complex, 14.1 million. Preparatory work towards the establishment of the Tobago Development Bank at a cost of 1.5 million, establishment of a loan guarantee program at a cost of 4 million, increase of the maximum award limit for the Enterprise Assistance Grant Program and Enterprise Assistance Fund to $50,000 and $500,000 respectively at a cost of $10 million. In 2024, we can see the establishment of the Diaspora Help Desk, an online digital registration platform at a cost of 7.3 million, coordination of foreign investment projects at a cost of 3.7 million. How much time do I have left, Madam President Officer? Thank you. Financing the budget for fiscal 2024. Madam Presiding Officer, the total funding requirement, as I mentioned earlier, for development projects is at 500 million, which is above the allocation of 260 million. So we propose to suppress recurrent expenditure by 5% in the first instance and transfer the estimated 115 million from recurrent expenditure to finance development projects for fiscal 2024. We propose to deploy funds from the unspent balance account. And let me say, as a strategy, every year the THA has to purposefully leave monies in the kitty as unspent balances so that we will have sufficient funds to draw down to pay CPEP and URP. We have to deliberately leave money behind. And so we propose to deploy an estimated $135 million. From this, 64 million will be utilized to supplement allocation of URP. 26 million would be expended to complement CPEP allocation. 18 million would be utilized to close the purchase of the Culloden estate to facilitate village expansion. 20 million will be used to purchase the much needed road paving equipment for infrastructure. Additionally, there is an Executive Council decision to save 5% of unspent balances for contingencies in the contingencies account, which will be 6.7 million. This fund will later on be set up akin to the National Heritage and Stabilization Fund to ensure that there will be monies available for emergencies.
Remember, your time is since elapsed. Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I rise to move that Standing Order 91-1 be used to suspend Standing Order 51 to allow the Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy to complete his presentation in its entirety.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 91-1 be used to suspend Standing Order 51 for the Chief Secretary and Secretary for Finance, Trade and the Economy to complete his presentation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I was at the point of laying out the funding strategies, because as I indicated for development, we have the priorities pitched at 500 million, but an allocation of 260 million. And I already pointed out how we will deal with some aspects, such as URP, CPEP, and where the funding will come from. Tobago's contingencies account, and of course, I spoke about the suppression of recurrent expenditure to the tune of 115 million to be transferred to the development side of the budget. Another key strategy in our off-budget financing matrix for fiscal 2024 is loans. In this regard, we move aggressively to access the 100 million loan secured from the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, or CAF. This funding is designated to be used strategically to do improvement works on the coastal infrastructure at Grange Bay, Plymouth, and Pigeon Point. And those areas are being directly impacted by sea level rise and climate change. There are some stringent technical requirements that have prevented us from accessing these resources, but we hope to work them out to the satisfaction of CAF and access the funding in fiscal 2024. We also propose to borrow through the Tobago Regional Health Authority, as was done in the past, and the THA enterprises with significant asset base and the revenue earning capacities, such as EID Cut and Stolly Park. We propose to establish an overdraft facility of about 100 million on the operating account of the TRHA, 300 million through EID Cut to be used exclusively to finance critical and major infrastructure works on the island, and 60 million through SPEL primarily to purchase a new plant and other critical upgrades. Notably, Madam Presiding Officer, there is a balance of 135 million from the THA 300 million bond facility, but we will not utilize this option as we seek to manage our liabilities in a sustainable manner. We also propose to use the public-private partnership modality. Madam Presiding Officer, for years, the THA has given lip service to using PPP with no meaningful action. We believe PPPs, well executed, can be a useful financial strategy. We intend to use this modality to advance some of our projects in areas such as the Bacolet Indoor Sporting Facility, the mega farms, and the Scarborough redevelopment project. Relatedly, it is worth noting here that the Division of Finance and Economy has secured USD $50,000 in grant funding from the Inter-American Development Bank, along with technical assistance, to produce a comprehensive public-private partnership policy framework for the THA. This document, when completed, will provide clarity and predictability in the THA's approach to and involvement in PPPs. We will also continue to deploy design, finance, build modality to fund some of our infrastructure projects, such as the Shervan-Storbay Connector Road and the Shervan Housing Development Project. Madam Presiding Officer, our fiscal policy decision on the use of this modality going forward will basically be confined to the development projects that have significant revenue-generating capacity. Madam Presiding Officer, notwithstanding the public utterances from the Minister of Finance and his Tobagonian colleagues in the Parliament, as mentioned earlier, the calculations reveal that the THA is owed a total of 166.4 million in approved parliamentary allocation that have not been transferred to the THA. My administration has been having discussions with the Minister of Finance on this matter over the last 2 years without any material success. Madam Presiding Officer, the time for futile talking has expired. We are now at an advanced stage in our preparation for two things. One, legal action, and two, preparation of the complaint to invoke the jurisdiction of the Dispute Resolution Commission provided for under Section 56 of the THA Act 40 of 1996. Section 56 of the Act provides for the establishment of the DRC to resolve disputes between the THA and the central government on budgetary allocations to the Assembly and matters in connection therewith. Madam Presiding Officer, the only ruling of the DRC has given since... Madam Presiding Officer, the only ruling of the DRC was given since 2001, some 22 years ago. It was never intended to last forever. So much has changed since this ruling: population size, Tobago's socioeconomic conditions, among others. But successive central governments, and notice I said successive, so it's not limited to the current one, successive central governments have chosen to disregard these changes and to slavishly follow it, notwithstanding the fact that the ruling recommended, and though these recommendations were accepted by the Parliament in 2001, that the percentage of 4.03 to 6.9% be reviewed from year to year in light of prevailing circumstances, end quote. Additionally, Section 43 of the THA Act stipulates that the Cabinet must give due consideration to the financial and developmental needs of Tobago and to allocate financial resources to Tobago as fairly as is practicable, and in determining what is fair and practicable to take into consideration, among others, the following matters: physical separation of Tobago by sea from Trinidad and Tobago's distinct identity, isolation from the principal national growth centers, absence of the multiplier effects of expenditure and investment, private and public, made in Trinidad, restricted opportunities for employment and career fulfillment, the impracticality of participation by residents of Tobago in the major educational, cultural, and sporting facilities located in Trinidad. In addition to these, Madam Presiding Officer, DRC, in arriving at its ruling in 2001, gave further consideration to the following: that the cost of living in Tobago is higher than in Trinidad, that major large-scale investments are needed to ensure development and transformation of Tobago's economy, the overall contribution to the national economy of businesses operating in Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, you know what is interesting? Since 2010, successive governments have taken legislations to accord internal self-government to Tobagonians to Parliament. They all propose significantly higher percentage shares than 4.03%, which they deceitfully continue to allocate to the THA up to today. Incredibly incredible. So in other words, in all of the bills between 2010 and present, presented to the Parliament, the central government proposed significantly higher percentages. But no law is required to give Tobago a greater percentage, because the recommendation goes up to 6.9%. Madam Presiding Officer, to complement our financing measures, we also propose a number of reforms on the expenditure side to improve efficiency in our spending. Some of these measures include the following: all new purchases of THA vehicles must be electric as far as possible. Review, manage, and contain discretionary expenditures. More deliberate efforts at reducing the electricity consumption across THA operations. Enhance strategic procurement of goods and services. Madam Presiding Officer, as it relates to payment of liabilities, you may recall we inherited debts amounting to over 700 million, excluding the 165 bond financing, which occasioned the ongoing forensic audit. Conservatively, the outstanding liabilities at the start of this fiscal is now an estimated 500 million. Therefore, contrary to some ill-informed commentary, we have been making payments to contractors. Madam Presiding Officer, I've said repeatedly that there is no financially practical option for this huge liability to be in an efficient and sustainable manner from the minuscule development allocation we have been receiving. In other words, we can't just take the entire development budget and pay the liability. More than that, the liability to contractors is actually more than the development budget. Accordingly, in fiscal 2024, I have programmed the 166.4 million owed to Tobago by the central government to pay inherited liabilities. In other words, our monies that are sleeping out is what we are eyeing to be used to pay our liabilities to contractors. To this end, I am making a public call to the Honorable Prime Minister to send Tobago's money to Tobago, please. After all, he, like all other Tobagonians, know and appreciate and do not like to have money sleeping outside. Relatedly, we are going to continue our discussions on this matter with the central government and demand that this sum be made available to the THA at least by the mid-year review, if not before. Madam Presiding Officer, to support the effective implementation of our development agenda, we moving to implement a number of policy changes and upgrades over the next few months. One such change is our decision to re-establish the Policy Research and Development Institute, which they closed down. We will re-establish PRDI to spearhead evidence-based social and economic research and policy formulation of the THA. A concept note is already prepared and it is currently being reviewed by several public servants for their opinions. Another policy change is the operationalization of the Tobago Public Service Academy, which will be called by another name, to assist in training and upgrading the human resource capacity and capability of the THA, thereby enabling them to be more effective in meeting the needs of Tobagonians. Adjacent to this, we have taken the policy decision to restructure and repurpose the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services in a way that will ensure a better alignment between the areas for which the Assembly and the island of Tobago offers financial assistance to our university students that will meet Tobago's human development needs. Further, as part of our wider productivity enhancement and monitoring strategy, we will deploy modern human resources management technologies and other related applications to track punctuality and monitor performance. Finally, we propose to establish a company designed and engineered to more effectively and efficiently deliver our home construction program. These are just some of the policy changes the public can expect over the next few months. Madam Presiding Officer, as I conclude today's presentation, there's a critical need for me as Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy to give Tobagonians some coveted assurances that in spite of the fiscal and financial challenges occasioned by our unjustified low levels of parliamentary allocations, my administration will ensure that the socio-economic and that Tobago's journey to becoming the greatest little island on the planet is not upended. Madam Presiding Officer, we recognize the political games that are being played with Tobago's development and why they are being played. We are not going to be distracted by the shenanigans of the central government and its agents. Tobago's development is critical and important. To this end, I have directed my team to remain laser focused on the work at hand and our promise to the people of Tobago. We will take the higher ground. Madam Presiding Officer, one of my core duties and responsibilities is to make Tobago a better place for the next generation. It will be a human disaster of immense proportion if we fail to secure the constitutional changes and amendments aimed at correcting the constitutional imbalances in the relationship between Tobago and Trinidad. It will not be right for the next generation of Tobagonians to be saddled with same problems and injustices that our foreparents faced and our generation continues to face. Madam Presiding Officer, I can give no guarantees that the next generation of Tobagonians will have the depth of tolerance as we do and as our foreparents did. In this regard, my administration will mobilize and activate all the necessary resources needed to deliver a Tobago-centric conclusion to the decades-old internal self-government struggle. Without saying too much at this time, I propose to make some significant announcement on this matter and other related issues on Tobago Day. Let me end by thanking all secretaries and assistant secretaries for their invaluable contributions to this reprioritization effort. Likewise, I want to express gratitude to the administrators, accounting officers, and the technical leads across the divisions of the THA who were intimately involved in this exercise. To the members of the public who have been participating in our town hall meetings and whose contributions have helped define some of the priorities, I must say thank you. Finally, I want to thank all members of this House, inclusive of Minority Leader A and Minority Leader B, and of course the Minority Councillor. And with that, Madam Presiding Officer, I wish to place before this House the motion that reads as follows for debate and consideration. Whereas the Tobago House of Assembly met its legal obligation of approving and submitting a budget to the Cabinet in accordance with Section 41 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 96, and whereas the allocation of the Tobago House of Assembly is 2.585 billion or 55% of the THA's request for fiscal 2024, and whereas the central government continues to stymie the development of Tobago by persistently allocating 4.3% of the national budget, which is at the lower end of the DRC recommendation of 4.03 to 6.9%, and whereas the island's development is even further hampered by the Minister of Finance's unilateral decision to withhold funds allocated to Tobago by Parliament, often sending such funds outside of the arrangement prescribed for in Act 40 of 96, and whereas the executive and administrative heads of the Tobago House of Assembly consequently met and engaged in budget reprioritization exercises, be it resolved that this House accepts the policy measures and associated projects and programs emanating from the budget reprioritization exercises, which are designed and engineered to advance the socio-economic development of Tobago and the Tobagonians and our collective thrust towards greater autonomy. And be it resolved that this House agrees that the Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy should immediately seek legal redress over the illegal handling of THA finances by the Ministry of Finance. Madam Presiding Officer, I so move, and as I take my seat, let me acknowledge the students we see in the chamber today from Bishop's High School. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Sorry, Pentecostal Light and Life and Mount Hope.
Honorable members, yes? Honorable members, the question proposed is, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly, THA, met its legal obligation for approving and submitting a budget to the Cabinet in accordance with Section 41 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996. And whereas the allocation of the Tobago House of Assembly is 2.585 billion or 55% of the THA request for fiscal 2024. And whereas central government continues to stymie the development of Tobago by persistently allocating 4.3% of the national budget, which is at the lower end of the DRC recommendation of 4.03 to 6.9%. And whereas the island's development is even further hampered by the Minister of Finance's unilateral decision to withhold funds allocated to Tobago by Parliament, often sending such funds outside the arrangement prescribed for in Act 40 of 1996. And whereas the executive and the administrative heads of the Tobago House of Assembly consequently met and engaged in budget reprioritization exercises, be it resolved that this House accepts the policy measures and associated projects with programs emanating from the budget reprioritization exercises, which are designed and engineered to advance the socio-economic development of Tobago and Tobagonians and our collective thrust towards greater autonomy. And be it further resolved that this House agrees that the Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy should immediately seek legal redress over the illegal handling of the THA finances by the Ministry of Finance. Member for Darrell Springwim, you may now join the debate.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Let me say a special good morning to you, Madam Presiding Officer, Chief Secretary, Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries, Minority Councillor in our absence, administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly. Let me especially recognize the students, I think, from Mount Hope Secondary, and of course, Pentecostal Light and Life, school that is located in the best electoral district of the THA, Darrell Springwim. Welcome, one and all. Good morning. Madam Presiding Officer, I came here very enthusiastic, very excited to contribute to what I believe is an extremely important exercise in the administration of the affairs of Tobago, this reprioritization exercise. However, Madam Presiding Officer, I must register not just my disappointment, but my embarrassment to the way that this august chamber is being treated by my colleagues on the other side. Madam Presiding Officer, and I know things may happen, things may arise as from time to time, but at the end of the day, whatever is your personal affairs, personal challenges, should never affect the operations of this honorable house. And I know the Chief Secretary apologized to the members here, but I think the Chief Secretary owes a bigger apology to the people of Tobago, to whom repose trust in each of us to properly and seriously conduct their affairs. Madam Presiding Officer, I listened attentively and painfully at times to the Chief Secretary in his usual whine and cry, blame and defame, deflect and deceive. And I am left convinced that if I don't know was a person, it would be the Honorable Chief Secretary. And if, based on the example here given today, if having a good time was a party, it would be the Traveling People Party, the TPP. Because it seems, Madam Presiding Officer, that what was demonstrated and what has been demonstrated here this morning is that this administration has collapsed. It is plain to see as day when no one from this administration could give account for a colleague who's supposed to answer questions. No one knows what is happening. I'm sure they have WhatsApp group. Is it that you all don't talk to one another?
Minority Leader, is this part of your rebuttal?
It is part because it all speaks to governance and how we treat with the governance of Tobago.
I would appreciate your rebuttal, thanks.
Therefore, Madam Presiding Officer, I am saying, if this is how you plan to govern for the next 2 years, because we've seen the chaos, we've seen the confusion, we've seen the bacchanal, we've seen the separation, please do the honorable thing and call elections and give Tobagonians a chance to choose serious people who can and are committed to doing their business. Madam Presiding Officer, Tobagonians are living in fear. Tobagonians are living in frustration. Tobagonians are hurting. Tobagonians are living in pain. And some are even living in shame and disappointment as a result of the actions of this wicked, evil, vindictive, corrupt, and heartless administration. Madam Presiding Officer, today I want to give the assurance to every Tobagonian that may be so affected one way or the other, that the People's National Movement and I as Minority Leader stand with you and by your side every step of the way. For yea, though we walk through the valleys of shadow of death, we in Tobago shall fear no evil, including the TPP. And I encourage every Tobagonian to do not fear, do not cower, do not allow them to silence you. Rest assured, Madam Presiding Officer, the PNM will be a team of strong and loud voices for those of you whose voices have been silenced. And we will be an army of champions for those of you for whom the promise of a better tomorrow was but a gimmick for them on the other side to attain high office. Madam Presiding Officer, today I simply want to join the chorus of Tobagonians saying and asking this administration, 2 years down, what have you fixed? What have you fixed?
Member, can you please put your phones on silent? That goes for persons in the gallery and members as well. Member, please continue.
Madam Presiding Officer, and for those listening, those who are looking on at this debate, I think the Chief Secretary did us an injustice by not really treating with what is the real ethos, the real purpose of this exercise. And the main objective of an after-budget reprioritization is not to find excuse for your inability to deliver to the people. It's not to complain and whine about Trinidad not giving Tobago enough money. The main objective must be an in-depth analysis of the available resources and how do you then apportion those available resources to the benefit and satisfaction of the people of Tobago. And therefore, we must not allow the Chief Secretary to distract us from the critical importance of this exercise. And of course, we must challenge them, each of them as they get up, to tell us in detail how are they going to achieve what they said they are going to make the priority. We would not allow the Minister of Finance to get away with this. A wife would not allow her husband to make those kind of excuses that the Chief Secretary is making. And therefore, the Chief Secretary has the responsibility to account to the people of Tobago for whom he boasts usually that they elected him Chief Secretary. So therefore, Chief Secretary, you must account. You can't run and hide. You remind me of the dog with the bone. You were the one. You were part of the team that derailed the autonomy bill, that derailed Tobagonians getting 6.8%. And therefore, after you looked in the river and you dropped the bone that you have, and now that you have no bone, you want to blame the river. Chief Secretary, you have to man up. Man up and rise to the task, rise to the responsibility. It is interesting that the Chief Secretary is speaking about limited resources to improve the quality of life of Tobagonians and asking for sympathy and understanding when he eagerly spent over $300 million to satisfy his financiers in Trinidad. Can you imagine what that would have done in the communities?
With untruths, and then the member is also making defamatory statements.
Madam Presiding Officer,
Member,
I have given no money to any financiers.
Member.
I have given no resources to any financiers.
Members,
contractors.
members,
Statement should be retracted.
this is not up for debate. Please be guided by the standing orders of this House. Please continue.
Thank you, Honorable Presiding Officer. Therefore, you could imagine what could have been done with those monies that were spirited away to contractors in Trinidad. Could imagine how many roads that we could have paved, how many public buildings fixed, had it not been for the callous, selfish agenda of this administration. The Chief Secretary continues to mislead the public when he states that after paying workers, there would only be $6 million left for development. As we all know, monies allocated for wages, salaries, and other recurrent expenditures should not be spent on development projects within the financial year. Consequently, using the excuse that expenditure on wages and salaries impact the availability of funds for development works is dishonest, disingenuous, and most concernably, disrespectful to the intelligence of the average Tobagoan. The truth is, nothing much has changed since they went to the electorate with the mantra, "Let we fix this." In fact, and I will demonstrate, that they have had more resources. That's a fact. Than all previous PNM administrations. Yet the economic indicators suggest that Tobago is in a worse off position. This administration, they have already spent $5 billion. I want that to sink into every Tobagonian's mind. $5 billion have been spent in the last 24 months. And what? We drive around Tobago every day. I want Tobagonians to tell me, have you seen in your community any evidence of that $5 billion? And the question is, where has the money gone? I'm hearing some people travel to Trinidad and then they return with large suitcase. I don't know. Some people are building palatial mansions. I don't know. But the question Tobagonians are asking is, where has the money gone? Because you're having single mothers calling you every living day. Somebody wants a food card, have no groceries. Young fellas, youths on the block looking for jobs, can't find a job. You have contractors, as you mentioned, still outstanding to be paid. You have Tobagonian businessmen can't get access to financial loans because the THA not paying them on time, and the banks just don't have any confidence in this Tobago House of Assembly. When you look at the economic indicators, this THA, this Chief Secretary, and I'll demonstrate how disingenuous this Chief Secretary is. This Chief Secretary is on record as saying that the THA workforce is too large, and therefore his policy would be one to matriculate Tobagonians from the public coffers to the private. Yet the labor statistics presented by Central Statistical Office shows that instead of more persons move out of the THA to go to the private sector, more persons are actually leaving the private sector and going to the THA, and any economist will tell you why. The private sector is shrinking. People no longer have confidence in the private sector, so they are looking to the THA for stability. And that is because of the poor policy prescriptions of the Secretary of Finance and this Tobago House of Assembly executive. It is just bad policy. Under the PNM, just before the PNM demitted the office, even though the PNM was overwhelmingly kicked out, you know that the THA had a 4% increase in its GDP, in its output. What has happened under this administration? This administration has had a 6% decrease that we are now having minus 2% growth, a decline. And while that is declining, construction sector come to a complete halt, over 37% decline. Agriculture had so much faith in my good friend Natisha, but agriculture has gone nowhere. We have actually decreased output by 14%. And when I present this scorecard, because Madam Presiding Officer, if this administration was writing SEA, all of them would have to go to remedial classes. Because I've taken a scorecard of everything, just as how this Chief Secretary took his time and pointed out what would be the priority and what they would deliver and how much they would spend. He did that last year as well. And you know, sometimes when I speak, I have a son. When I speak and when I repeat things to him that he heard, he just said, Daddy, I hear that already. Half of the things said here today, I heard that last year. And what that tells me is that the only reason they are back here as a priority is because they just did not deliver it when they said they would deliver it. And so let me just share with you 76 priority areas. Now starting with the big bad, the flying member, the member that liked private jet. I was to ask him, but he's smart, he didn't come today. Because I wanted to ask him whether that private trip with that jet, whether that was the first time he flew on a private jet.
Member relevance.
It is the use of state funds.
Member relevance.
Anyways, Madam Presiding Officer, I'm going to move to the...
Point of order, Madam Presiding Officer.
Member.
Point of order, no state funds was used to charter any private jet or any plane. That's misleading the House. The member needs to withdraw it.
Madam Presiding Officer, the member went on a public trip. I did not...
Was used to charter.
Members.
You know about life?
Members. Please have some decorum. Member, kindly retract that statement and continue.
Madam Presiding Officer, I would simply ask I retract the statement and
Thank
I move
you.
on.
Thank you.
So, Division of Infrastructure, 76 projects, and the Division of Infrastructure listed 6 main priority areas. Emergency road restoration, and they listed 4 roads. As of today, it is my information, out of the 4 roads, only 1 has been completed, so I gave them quarter mark. Madam Presiding Officer, jetty at Plymouth and Cove, no jetty at Plymouth, no jetty at Cove, so I gave them 0. Jetty at Palliative, as far as I understand, no jetty. Construction of a mini-mall in Charlottesville, no mini-mall. Hard Court in Pavilion in Goodwood, no pavilion. Shore Park Recreational and Cultural Complex, I gave them a tick. They got a mark because I know they did some upgrades. So, out of 6, this secretary got 1 3/4. That is what, less than 20 to 40% fail, remedial class for him. Division of Education, 5 main projects. Pre-construction work, Scarborough Sec, never started, 0. Provision of safer, because we hear it back again today, that $3 million going to start pre-construction, so we know that is 0. Provision of safe and secure physical, that came back again today, so 0. Institution intervention across the entire education system to correct learning loss occasioned by, I heard nothing about that, so 0. An area of priority to be designed, a plan for the construction of the new special school, I gave a half mark because I know some designs were done. So, Madam Presiding Officer, and well, for the school repair program, that was ticked because we know school repairs went on. So, Secretary for Education, you got 1.5 out of 5. That is about, what, 25%? Remedial class for you. Division of Health, establish oncology unit, fail. Garbage collection, failed. The expansion of the district dental care services, I gave a tick because I understand that started. The entomology lab to research mosquitoes. Mosquitoes and see no research as yet, failed. Upgrade of public cemeteries. Haven't seen, I'll give Shia 1 mark for that. Purchasing of incinerators, failed. Food support, social and digital technology, failed. So out of 7, you got 2 out of 7, remedial class for you. Office of the Chief Secretary, digitization of the business process of the THA, no digitization. The establishment of the Department of Public Safety, no Department of Public Safety. The completion of the CERT Speyside Emergency Response Sub-Office, still incomplete. The completion of the Color Hall Administrative Complex, I give you a half. Town and country planning should be operational in Tobago. Town and country planning still not operational. Fairfield Complex Coastal Protection Works, no Fairfield Complex Coastal Protection Works. So Chief Secretary, big man in the business, you got 1.5 out of 6. Failed, remedial class for you. Division of settlement, they had a lot. So I wouldn't go through all. But for the most part, they had over 14 projects. And this is the man who told me to watch him work. Still looking for houses, no houses. Adelphi, I do thief money, so I do.
Member, retract that statement immediately. Member, retract that statement immediately.
I will retract.
Members, please be guided by Standing Order 44. Member for Darrell Swinging, you may continue.
Madam Presiding Officer, long and short of it, this member had 5 of the projects identified out of 14 failed. Madam Presiding Officer, Division of Tourism. Out of 13 projects identified, only 4 was completed. And let me listen, fairness, completion of the Manta Lodge, that happened, upgrade of Store Bay Beach facility, still outstanding. Pigeon Point infrastructure works, half mark, restoration of historic sites, half mark, signage projects, half mark. New flights, we are still waiting on new flights. Establishment of a tourism work registry, that is still outstanding. The strategy next fiscal will be to fill some of the vacancies. I'm not sure what's happening there. A registry file tracking system. There will be the launch of the division's fully integrated website. That has happened. Procurement of equipment for lifeguards. That has happened. The deployment of Wi-Fi across tourism sites. Some sites does have Wi-Fi, so they got half mark. One of the focuses of the division is the accommodation. There are 3 major projects that are to come on stream. Of those 3 projects, none of those projects has come on stream. So the councillor got 4 out of 13. Fail. Division of Food Security. Fortunately, I heard 4 priority projects. I'm sure the member must be frustrated because I heard construction of abattoirs at Hope and Kendall. That has not happened. The mega farm project, still on the ground. Establishment of the root and tuber planting material, question mark. Agroforestry and upper watershed management urban forestry program. So the member got 0 out of 3 because I didn't, the 3rd project, which is the root cup, I didn't have the information on it. So member 0 out of 3. And I'm presiding officer, and I'm going through this process just to show you all across the length and breadth of this administration, all they have to show after $5 billion is fail. Madam Presiding Officer, while we on fail and the use of public monies, because I hear the Chief Secretary talking about public-private partnerships, and I want to draw to the attention of this Honorable House and the people of Tobago a situation that I first became interested in when the Daily Express newspaper published a headline,
Member, you have 5 minutes.
Jack in, Walker out. And I became interested in this story because when you read the story, it says that Ashworth Jack is the new chairman of the Studley Park Enterprise Limited, SPEL. David Walker was given his thank you letter for his service to SPEL, which came to an end on March 28th. And what is interesting about this story is it went on to say, so said Infrastructure Secretary Trevor James, as he sought to dismiss reports that there were 2 people claiming to be the chairman of the state company. And I paused because what is interesting about this in particular is this the same Trevor James, who is the Secretary of Infrastructure, that we have been asking for the last 6 months to tell this honorable house who are the members of the Studley Park Enterprise Limited Board. And for God in heaven's sake, this member would not tell us, but yet he's quoted here in the media, saying to the media that Mr. Ashworth Jack is the chairman of this SPEL board. But more than that, Madam Presiding Officer, asked by the Express on Wednesday whether or not the Executive Council approved this change, James said all appointments were approved by the Executive Council of the THE. Walker, who also spoke with the Express on Wednesday, said,
Member, I'm trying to find the relevance in this part of your presentation.
We are talking about public-private partnership, and I'm going to get there. So I'm taking you there. Wednesday said as far as he was concerned, he was still the legally appointed chairman. And the reason why I raise this matter, Madam Presiding Officer, is because while we are on the question of public-private partnership, I have in my possession a private proposal to this public entity to not only finance, not only operate, but to maintain and market the Studley Park quarry, Tobago's most precious prize gem. Here it is. Persons are having conversations about giving away Tobago's most private assets. And I simply want to ask the Secretary of Infrastructure whether he or any representative on behalf of the Tobago House of Assembly met with this company called Farmer Quarries, strategic partner, and whether any arrangement was made to enter into any private deal as to have the Studley Park quarry outsourced. And further, whether the fact that this arrangement perhaps was not facilitated by the previous chairman gives rise to the reason there's now a new chairman that he does not want to tell this house about. I rest my case on that matter. Madam Presiding Officer, so as I conclude, as I close, I simply want to say to Tobagonians and to this executive, let go of the petty politics and put the interests of all of Tobagonians first. Instead of trying to sell Tobagonians' dreams about airy-fairy vanity projects and covert ways for your Trinidad friends to get the better of our treasury, tell us how you are going to remove the square pegs from the round holes. Tell us how you are going to be honest for once and put an end to the runaway corruption that has festered like a voracious cancer since this administration took office. Tell the hundreds of people you unceremoniously and disgracefully dismissed from their jobs how you will put food on their tables and how they will pay their bills. Tell the Tobagonian contractors you unfairly blacklisted when will they be paid so that they can honor their commitments to the banks, hardwares, and the hundreds of employees they once had who are now on the breadline. Confess to Tobagonians that it is really the liar politicians in this administration.
Minority Leader, I'm going to caution you.
I'm just simply rephrasing. Okay.
I'm going to caution you on your words. Members, I am going to caution you on your words. Please try to use parliamentary language.
My apologies, Madam Presiding Officer. I was just rephrasing a famous phrase from a colleague of mine. Madam, tell the people of Tobago the truth. Tell us, when are you going to finally give us the reshuffle that you promised the people of Tobago? No one asked you. You declared that there will be a reshuffle. And Madam Presiding Officer, if they cannot tell us any of these things,
Member,
then at least...
Your time is up. Honorable members, it is now... Have a seat, Assemblyman Duke. Honorable members, it is now 12:05. We are to break for lunch. Can a decision be made as to how we would proceed?
To sit until the minority leader is dispensed with his presentation.
But his presentation is dispensed with. We are now asking if we are going to suspend lunch.
We will suspend for lunch, Madam Presiding Officer, but additionally, I will wish that we allow the minority leader the extra time.
Did you request extra time, minority leader, or were you?
I saw the member for Roxborough Argyle punching to request an extra time.
He didn't say anything as yet, so I don't know. I don't want to.
Right, so
I don't want to anticipate
right,
what was going to be said.
I wish to have the House continue to sit so that we can facilitate whatever the member for Roxborough Argyle was about to provide for the House.
Honorable member, the question is that we continue to sit until, I guess, Mr. Duke, Assemblyman Duke, proposes his question. I don't know if it was a question you were going to propose. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I stand here to ask that this House, through the Presiding Officer, grants my colleague, the Assemblyman for Swam it is still, but that will spread whim to finish his presentation.
Honorable members, the question is that Section 91(1) be used to suspend Standing Order 51 to allow for the member for Darrell Spring Whim to complete his presentation. All in favor, say aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Member, please continue.
Madam Presiding Officer, let me extend gratitude to my colleagues. And Madam Presiding Officer, as I was wrapping up, just wanted to wrap up on the note and on the premise, and to let this administration understand that as we speak in the Tobago House of Assembly, a number of your employees are indeed living in fear and uncertainty, and that cannot be good for productivity. Persons are saying to me, Madam Presiding Officer, that it appears that this administration has waged war on contract workers. They are saying they understand that MSU, which is a management services unit, is now being weaponized to find ways to surreptitiously terminate the engagement of persons who are working in the THA for inordinately long time, People are working some 10 years. In one situation, I was told of an office support assistant in the Division of Community Development. That person was there working for 6 years in that division. And after going off on vacation within a 2-year contract, when that person returned from that resumed duty, they were escorted off the compound and told that their contract has been reduced from a 3-year contract to a 1-year contract. And this is a woman, a mother, and is now home without anything to do, any means of an income, and frankly is just frustrated. And I am saying, what would cause the administration to target an office support assistant to the point that you're not even allowing her to finish her 2-year contract? Madam Presiding Officer, and the stories get worse and worse. I am told in the Division of Agriculture as we speak, memos are going around. People are frantic that they may not be paid for Christmas because certain actions have been taken that has caused persons in the accounting section and the payroll section to be, some was short-term but giving good service, and rather than regularize those employment, they have sent home those persons who are critical to the payroll system, and now people are in limbo. A worker called me, how am I going to spend Christmas if we are not going to be paid in December and in January? And I really hope that the information is just panic and is not true, but this is the reality on the ground. Tobagonians are living in fear, and they may, because they get their pay every month on time, when they are to travel, they get their per diem on time, so they may laugh and they may criticize, and it may seem as not a big thing for you, but on the ground, in reality, people are fearful because some secretaries are even threatening people. That is the information. Some people are saying there's a hit list. I'm not making this up.
Members, please be guided by the standing orders of this House. When a member is on his feet, there should be no interruption as per Standing Order 44.
Madam Presiding Officer.
Please allow for the member to complete his presentation. Member, continue.
Madam Presiding Officer, my grandfather used to say, laugh and cry live in the same house. And as I conclude, while they are laughing, there are many Tobagonians genuinely crying. And the Chief Secretary said it best. Time is longer than twine. And your day, like night follow day, your time of reckoning shall soon come. I thank you.
Leader.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, I beg to move that this House remains seated until the next speaker presents. I know it's lunchtime.
Honorable members, the question is that we remain seated until the next member has completed their presentations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it. The chair now acknowledges member for Belgarden Glamorgan.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Following that presentation, I will start by reminding myself and possibly allowing my mother's words of advice to let me just take a drink of water so that I can really, as the member before me said, let go of the petty politics and put Tobago first. Because sitting here, Madam Presiding Officer, I must admit that it is very difficult to listen to so many of the untruths and so forth that are just being spewed. And I think what is even more disturbing, Madam Presiding Officer, is the ease with which it is being spewed is really troubling, Madam Presiding Officer. So I will take the opportunity to just possibly correct some of the misinformation that was provided, just so that we would have it on record for one more time, written on the Hansards of the government of Tobago. I will start by talking very quickly again, and I have said it several times before, but I will take the 2 minutes and say it again, to speak about this continued misrepresentation of what happened with the Tobago autonomy bills that are still lavishing in the House, in Parliament, in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Because I do remember being part of the team, as was indicated before, that included even members of those who were representing the PNM at that time, sat around with that group that was led by independent Senator Dr. Maria Remy Dillon Remy, apologies, where the group really sat together and highlighted key issues why those of us who did not agree with the bills as they were written, we could not agree with them. And Tobagonians, I would like you all to seriously pay attention to these two things, because I will say them once again. They were repeated, I think, at the last public meeting that we had, but I would say it one more time for the House so that it is recorded one more time. There were several critical issues with those bills that we found significant challenges with, and I will spend time discussing two of them very quickly. The first was the fact that the bills that were presented in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago that were part of the GSC, that coincidentally I was sitting on the other side of this, and I represented the people on the minority then, is one of the preambles that said that the equality of status between the people of the island of Trinidad and the people of the island of Tobago, that is what we were asking for, enabling them, let me rephrase that, Madam Presiding Officer. The document read as follows, that one of the things that were in the preamble of the bill was that, 2, the equality of status between the people of the island of Trinidad and the people of the island of Tobago, enabling them access to fair share of the resources and opportunities available to all the people of the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. And our challenge with that, Madam Presiding Officer, was the fact that the people in the island of Trinidad and the people in the island of Tobago currently have equality of status because the Constitution already grants us that. And the suggested change that was sent to the JSC, which is what the people have been talking about for all of the consultation, was that we wanted that changed to the equality of status between the island of Trinidad and the island of Tobago, enabling them access to a fair share of the resources and opportunities. There is a clear distinction between the people of the island of Trinidad and the people of the island of Tobago, and just equality of status between the island of Trinidad and the island of Tobago, because this is what we said we wanted. That's one. The other thing which was also critical, which we are also probably is more important for what we are discussing now had to do with the absolute definition of Trinidad and Tobago in the bills and the fact that the definition of Trinidad did not exist, but the definition of Tobago was as is, and I will read, Madam Presiding Officer. For the purposes of Section 53, 75, 75A, and Chapter 11A, in reference to Tobago, it means the island of Tobago, Little Tobago, St. Giles Island, Marble Island, Goat Island, Sisters Island, and the internal and inland waters of Tobago. And the reason that is problematic, Miss Presiding Officer, is the fact that the current Tobago House of Assembly Act gives the Tobago House of Assembly jurisdiction over all of those things plus 6 nautical miles. And when we read the document as it was written, it seemed to be taking away even the 6 nautical miles that the Tobago House of Assembly currently has responsibility for. And we could not have agreed. And I am telling you, as a member who was in the Tobago House of Assembly as a minority councillor, I could not have sat there and agreed to a bill that took away the 6 nautical miles that we currently have responsibility for. So when the member continues to speak about these Tobago bills that would have given us so much, it is very difficult to sit here, Madam Presiding Officer, and listen to the member speak about it like that when the member, if he's honest with himself and even if he's honest with the colleagues that were sitting in the meeting with us, we could not have agreed with that, Madam Presiding Officer. Total sellout of the island. Madam Presiding Officer, it's also difficult to sit here and listen to the member talk about the number of failed, quote unquote, projects, priority projects that were listed, when in fact, so many of those are, if you are really honest, ongoing because we actually started them. And if you really look back at the budget statements before last fiscal, they have been on the books for the last how many decades? Underfunded. So to come here and speak about, Madam Presiding Officer, all of these projects that are there and there and there that are not completed, we met many of them. And we are now with the situation that we have met as it relates to the underfunding. And the Chief Secretary and Secretary with responsibility for finance, at the beginning of his presentation, highlighted the fact that so many of these projects cost so much. And when you look at how much monies we've been allocated for so many of these projects, I sat here, Madam Presiding Officer, and wondered, one, is what we're really doing here, boy? It's really what I wondered, Madam Presiding Officer. And then I thought to myself, but you know what? We actually did it. We actually spent the last 2 years turning stone into bread because of the amount of work we have been able to accomplish, Madam Presiding Officer, even with those millions of dollars of shortfalls. I will also say, Madam Presiding Officer, that, and I'm going to say it even slower than before, because there seems to be a clear lack of understanding with the member as it relates to how employment happens in the Tobago House of Assembly. And I will speak specifically about the employment numbers that we speak about that relate to development program workers. Madam Presiding Officer, when we came into this in December 2021, we met, and I will say it again, we met the development workers that are in infrastructure. We met the development workers that are in agriculture. And it is because we met them and we did not want to get rid of them why we continually have to speak about the fact that we have to literally find money every single month to pay these DP workers that are in infrastructure and agriculture every single month, because we met them and they do not get paid out of the recurrent expenditure. They get paid, Madam Presiding Officer, out of the DP expenditure. That is why when the minister says that we are getting $260 million for DP, and then he says, good luck, he knows why he told us good luck. Because we have to find the money to pay all of these workers who we met here, Madam Presiding Officer. And I will not be long. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about one thing that relates specifically to the division that I am responsible for. And it is because, Madam Presiding Officer, this idea of hungry people and taking away food cards come up so frequently that I need to put it on record again in this House, specifically as it relates to social welfare in Tobago and how that system runs. Because the minority leader, again, is making it very clear that he does not even understand that the vast majority of the food cards that are actually presented in Tobago are presented by the Ministry of Social Development and Family, the name. Madam Presiding Officer.
Which I speak of was that food card program specifically through Division of Finance that is now under the Honorable Deputy Chief Secretary.
And thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Minority Leader, because when you speak, Mr. Minority Leader, we need to also identify the fact that the policy as it relates to food cards in Trinidad and Tobago changed coincidentally just around the time that this administration became the executive. So when you consistently speak about taking away food cards, Madam Presiding Officer, when he does, I have to continually ask the question when people come to me, what color food card did you have? Because those that the food card was taken away at the beginning of our tenure was the red food cards, which are not the food cards administered by the then Division of Finance, but now Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. The food cards that were taken away were the red food cards that are administered as part of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Because it is a part, and I'm going somewhere with this, Madam Presiding Officer, this is why I think it's important for us to have this conversation. Because if you look at the 5th schedule of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, number 26 on the 5th schedule of the Tobago House of Assembly Act says social welfare, which is why most people assume that whenever we are talking about any kind of social welfare in Tobago, we are actually speaking about the social welfare that happens at the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. But it does not. As a matter of fact, I had to be very clear with a colleague of mine who messaged me last week, and I will not say which colleague it was. because the colleague messaged and, okay, she said, why all you take away the disability grant? Or why the old age pension didn't kick in, because it was a specific situation where the disability grant was taken away and the old age pension didn't kick in yet. And she asked why, and I had to ask her, who is all here? Because the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, even though 26 says the social welfare, is not responsible for the administration of any of those social grants that are under the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. And those include the Senior Citizens Grant, the Disability Grant, there's a Temporary Assistance Grant, and all of those grants. The Red Food Card, Madam Presiding Officer, is not administered by the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, and this is why it's important, Madam Presiding Officer. Because when I look at, and you know, I actually sat in the House when the Minister read the budget presentation, and I sat there for what felt like 10 hours. And when I listened to him and recognized that after all of that, there is a little bit of money we're really getting. And then when I looked at my division, specifically Health, Wellness and Social Protection, and recognized that we are getting 752 or so million in recurrent, which includes the 42 million that we send every year, every month to TRHA and all of that. So it may sound big, but it ain't really that much when you think about we include the expenses of TRHA in it. It also includes 31 million for DP. And I will not go through what those priority projects are because the Secretary for Finance and Chief Secretary already identified what they are. I want us to identify, to be clear on one thing. Within the recurrent budget for the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, it includes 2 specific votes where we get all of the money that the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection gives as social grants in Tobago. And that includes all of the rental assistance. It includes all of when we have to buy back the bed for people who house bundle and all of that. If you have to do some kind of medical thing that we can't do it in the public space, it comes from those 2 grants, and I will tell from those 2 votes, and I will tell you what the allocations are for those 2 votes. There's a grant to necessitous persons that is $2 million for the year. There's an emergency cases fund that is $1.6 million for the year. That is a total of $3.6 million for the year. And that is what comes to the Tobago House of Assembly, to the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection for all of our grants. And let me read you now how much money was allocated to the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services for the grants that we do not take care of. Senior Citizens Grant. When I looked at the number, I had to say feet. Now that can't be right, but okay. $4,463 million and a little bit more. Let me drink some water. If we calculate just a basic 5%, let's just say, you know, the population of Tobago, 5% of Trinidad and Tobago, let's use the 5%, middle. That is about $232 million that I know because I don't get any of the reports. So I am sure that that $232 million does not make it to our senior citizens in Tobago. The other one, social assistance, which is where some of the other stuff comes from, $329 million to the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. the 5% of that, that is $16,400,000. I'll just look at one more, the disability grants. $646 million, almost the entire recurrent budget for the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. If we just look at the 5% of that, that is about $32 million that should be in Tobago, allocated to the Tobago House of Assembly, because according to the Tobago House of Assembly Act, the 5th schedule, number 26, says social welfare. So, Madam Presiding Officer, when we come here to talk about all of these poor, oh, and by the way, those numbers, I don't think those numbers include the food card numbers, That's in the red food card. Now we have, and it's a blessing, we have a situation where we inherited the green food cards, which are the food cards administered by the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. And the good thing is that those green food cards were purchased before we got here. And because none of our members have 400 and something cards walking around in their pockets, it means that we've been able to dutifully administer those cards to individuals who really need them. Because if you read on them, it says emergency food cards. So, Madam Presiding Officer, the people of Tobago, when those of us who are on this side speak about the fact that we have so much work to do, even the Tobago House of Assembly Act allows us, or should be allowing us, to do so many things, but it is difficult to do it because even the monies that have been duly allocated to us is not being sent to us. You understand, people of Tobago, what we are talking about and why we are fighting the way we are fighting. And you would understand why when the member for Spring Garden Wim stands up, Darrell Spring Wim, stands up and speaks some of the most vile untruths that he has been given to speak. Consistently. It is difficult for us to sit here and just quietly listen and don't respond the way some of my colleagues do, because it is taking a lot of us, a lot from us, Madam Presiding Officer, to sit here and just be parliamentary. When the people and the lives of the people of Tobago is consistently being played and consistently being taken for a fool. And that is why, Madam Presiding Officer, I stand here to agree with my colleague, the Chief Secretary and Secretary with Responsibility for Finance, to say to all of us, given everything that we have to read in these yellow books, that we will go out and do all that we can to seek legal redress. Yes. To seek legal redress over the illegal handling of the THA finances by the Ministry of Finance. And I know all of my colleagues, because we have to consistently turn stone into bread, agrees with this motion, because we see what we have to do every single day, every single week, every single month to ensure we provide the services and to ensure that we are able to execute those priority projects, Mr. Minority Leader, most of them that were left by your colleagues. With that, Madam Presiding Officer, I thank you and I beg that we continue to support the executive, because days like these really show how difficult our activities or how difficult our jobs are given what is happening on the other side of the pond. I thank you.
Honorable members, we would now break for lunch. We will resume in 1 hour's time. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Errol Barrow Center for Creative Imagination. We wish to inform you that no eating, drinking, or smoking is permitted in the theater. Also note that no photography or videography is allowed unless prior permission has been granted by the management of the center. It is at this time that we remind you to turn off or silence your cell phones. Please enjoy the presentation.
Good evening. Professor Winston Moore, Deputy Principal of the UE Cave Hill Campus, Mr. Julian Rogers, distinguished guest speaker, Mrs. Goodwin Rogers, and Claire Haynes, Dr. Henderson Carter, Department of History and Philosophy, the head, and chair of the 60th Anniversary Planning Committee, Mr. Noel Wood, Chief Executive Officer, the Nation Group of Companies, Ms. Carol Martindale, Editor-in-Chief, Nation News, Mr. Anthony Green, General Manager, Starcom Network, Mr. Ronnie Clark, Program Director, Starcom Network, Mr. Sherwood McCaskey, and Ms. Nadia Foster, representatives of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, Dr. Alison Leacock, Chair of the National Training Initiative, my apologies, members of senior management and staff of the University of the West Indies, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, both in this physical space and online, welcome. Thank you for choosing to be a part of this event, the 7th lecture in the Legacy Lecture Series, jointly supported by the Nation Publishing Company and the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies. It is an impressive name, Legacy, because it's both a memory and a wish. Legacy speaks to the value we hold to what has been accomplished, gained, protected, and to the potential and promise we believe can occur for the future. Legacy requires the capacity to treasure the past and revere the future, and its significance is best understood within community, which is why we're gathered as such this evening, in bringing together two institutions, but also the communities that allow these institutions to hold up what has been accomplished and to look toward the future. Therefore, I'm grateful to have representatives of these institutions, Dr. Tara Innes, Senior Lecturer in History at the Cave Hill campus, and Mr. Noel Wood, CEO of the Nation Group of Companies, to share a few remarks at the opening of this lecture. So let us please welcome, firstly, Dr. Innes to the podium to give her remarks.
All protocol having been established, it is my very great pleasure to welcome you all to the University of the West Indies 60th Anniversary Legacy Lecture Series. Tonight is the culmination of a partnership between the UWI Cave Hill campus and the Nation Publishing Company. Over the course of this lecture series, where we have heard about many of the contributions the university has made to Barbados and the region, as well as the critical perspectives the institution has brought to bear on issues and challenges facing many of our societies in the 21st century. We have had the great honor to work with the Nation Publishing Company, which is celebrating its own 50th anniversary this year, and I think that's all deserving of a round of applause. And we have now worked together to bring you a special lecture focused on the evolution of media in Barbados and the Caribbean. This appraisal comes at an important juncture in the information age. At one time, technology offered a lot of promise for wider distribution of the news and events shaping our world. Now, in the age of social media, we are battling the onslaught of misinformation and disinformation, which are being used to manipulate minds and sway opinions, and worse yet, actually influence our behaviors and actions in negative ways. And now we stand on a precipice, looking out at really what is an abyss of uncertainty that generative artificial intelligence, or AI, represents. As academics here at the university, we are exploring the problems, but also the possibilities of all of this and how it's going to affect Caribbean societies. We look forward tonight, though, to learning more about the perspectives of media professionals on these developments. And it is with this final word that I give way back to Dr. Hunt, who will introduce our next speakers. So thank you and welcome to the University of the West Indies Cape Hill campus.
Thank you, Dr. Innes, for your insightful observations. I'll be brief. I'll simply just invite Mr. Wood to give his remarks on behalf of the nation.
Protocols having been suitably established, good evening. I'm pleased to see so many of you here this evening, and I notice our former CEO, Vivian Gittins, in the audience, and long-standing advertising manager, Mr. Wilfred Field, in the crowd. Yes. I'm honored to be here tonight to deliver the opening remarks on behalf of the board, management, and staff of the Nation Publishing Company Limited in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Nation and the 60th anniversary of the University of the West Indies Cape Hill campus. These two organizations can both boast of changing the lives of many on this island, and it is a privilege that they've been able to come together to mount this series of lectures. I find tonight's topic particularly intriguing because, like many of you over 45, and I'm going to show my age now, I grew up in a house where radiofusion reigned supreme. It was the only station we listened to because it was permanently on in our home. We grew up hearing voices like Olga Lope-Seal, Alfred Pragnell, Frank Pardo, young Julian Rogers, and others of that stature. And then Julian Rogers came back and transformed VOB, two other staples on the media landscape, VOB and Julian Rogers. Back in those days, radiofusion did not have to compete with anything or anyone until CBC came along. Now I'm told there are as many as 16 radio stations in Barbados competing for different audiences, which is testimony to the changing media landscape on the island. Once upon a time, we would have said the future of this media landscape was AI, but in fact, AI is here. Artificial intelligence has arrived, and there was not even a fanfare to announce its presence. It kind of crept up on us because we've been using computers and fancy cell phones for a while, asking all sorts of questions and getting the answers, but not thinking about it as AI. But now, as we are moving to the next level, where people want to use AI to do their work, answer question papers, write dissertations, create graphics, play music, even make your coffee and turn on the lights, we sit up and start to pay a little more attention. At the Nation, we have gone from one printed publication a week 50 years ago, using typewriters and pasting up copy on a page, to operating with computers and now a fully online e-paper on our website and a strong presence on key social media platforms. Over time, we had to embrace the technology to stay current, and not just current, but on the cutting edge in order to stay ahead as one of the leading publishing companies in the region. But however we move forward in the future, we will always be mindful of the principles laid down by our founders, principles of good journalism based on honesty, integrity, and truthfulness. So I'm looking forward to tonight's message as we are poised to enter the next 50 years of the nation's existence. Thank you.
It now falls to me to introduce tonight's featured speaker, and I feel as though I'm going to be echoing some of Mr. Wood's observations. The Caribbean has its stories, its voices, its memorials. And as a regional university with an international reach, we have the responsibility to build on and protect the knowledge and experiences of where we are, where we come from. This is part and parcel of creating legacy. Thankfully, as I have observed earlier this evening, this is not a responsibility we shoulder on our own. As many of our Caribbean scholars have pointed out, our region's cultural legacies and practices tend to the communal, which is why that responsibility is shared with others, especially those devoted to the development of our avenues of expression, recollection, and vision, among whom are those in media. Through media, we create a sense of place, of cultural identity, of visibility, that is always in the process of shaping us and what we value. As Mr. Wood pointed out, for those old enough to remember a pre-internet world, media was in a different way already social, in that it has always done the work of connecting us with the world beyond our homes. But that connection was mostly one way. Online networks changed the nature of that connection to an exchange. And who is to say where artificial intelligence will take that relationship? Thankfully, this evening's speaker is well qualified to answer that question, especially within the context of our region. With over 50 years' experience in the media industry across this region, Mr. Julian Rogers has done the serious, valuable work of creating and sharing the stories and images of the Caribbean in his capacity as broadcaster, journalist, producer, publisher, and media manager. Among the many positions he has held in the industry, he has been managing editor for Guardian Media in Trinidad, where he led the transformation of news and current affairs operation into digital channels, publisher for the Tropical Media Group Limited in Antigua and Barbuda, where he launched the Sunday Scoop, the first Sunday newspaper in the Eastern Caribbean outside of Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago. While the manager of the Antilles Radio Corporation Limited in Montserrat, he was instrumental in reformatting the station towards expressing its Caribbean sensibilities. And as has been observed earlier, for those of us in Barbados, he may be more familiarly known as the program manager of VOB, Voice of Barbados, and in a real sense, the voice of Barbados, as a radio show host and anchor. Mr. Rogers is proudly linked to the university, first as a graduate, then as an advisor in the university's communications programs, and currently in his role as managing director of Media Rogers Group